with Jon Impemba and James Grande.
What is going on, everybody? Jon Impemba here with James Grande. Welcome into the Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS Playbook Show. That is right. It is Monday. We have a 4-game Monday slate here to kick off the week. Not a bad 4-gamer here either. Some interesting matchups that we can certainly look to take advantage of. We have some injury news that thankfully we've already gotten, a lot of which we speculated last night, kind of happening anyways with Miami. No Hero, no Rozier. We know Jimmy Butler is out of this game as well with his suspension there. So Miami's gonna be pretty shorthanded here tonight. We're waiting on some other injury news, like Ben Simmons being questionable for Brooklyn. Whether or not he suits up tonight against Memphis is something that we are waiting on. 7 o'clock roster lock here tonight. 10 p.m. is your late night hammer. The news and story of the day here, James, before we just jump into this, because it'll be a quicker show with just the 4 games. The news that DraftKings is they're attempting a no late swap slate this upcoming Friday. It appears that the main 7 p.m. slate is not going to include the ability to late swap your lineups. You and I are kind of on one side of this argument. Apparently, if you look across social media, a lot of people are for this move. Quality of home life, people having a lot to do. They like the idea of no late swap. You and I and us who understand the NPA realize the volatility of lineups and injuries and late scratches in this sport, and taking away a late swap now, it all depends on how much risk you're willing to take when you go ahead and start building your lineups. A part of the strategy that you and I talk a lot about is, okay, well, we'll plug in player Y and know that when the 10 p.m. games come around, we'll have some flexibility to come about if that player gets ruled out or if that player gets ruled in. That's not taken out of your hands, at least on Friday's slate. You plug in player Y who might be questionable, say a LeBron James or an Anthony Davis, and those guys do or don't play, you're either eating the zero or, which what some of the people are happy about, you're going to get them at low rostership because of people being worried about them being ruled out. So I want to get your thoughts on the no late swap making its way back, because there was a time in our lives where late swap wasn't a thing in DFS, and the community was basically up in arms about it. They wanted late swap, they gave us late swap, and now for whatever reason we're like reverting back. It's like how trends come back around years later. Well, now everybody wants no late swap again. So what are your thoughts here on what DraftKings is attempting to do?
I'll definitely be the first one to say it's not everybody that wants late swap, because I don't want, or not everyone that wants late swap to be gone. It's a specific amount of people. It's the people that can bully the rest of the field by playing 150 lineups, and they'll gain leverage by playing the players that are questionable, and they'll play their counterparts and they'll play their teammates to gain leverage on everyone else. Single entry is going to become much more challenging for those that don't have infinite bankrolls. Mm-hmm. So I'm just totally against it. I'm not in favor of it. By all means, like, you got to a place where you can abuse this system and play 150 lineups a night. Like, good for you. Like, that's obviously a testament to what you've done in the industry. But I don't think we're kind of rewarding them again. And I get it. It's like, it's a work-life balance thing where, sure, you now have the rest of the night to just go watch basketball and not like have to swap your lineups and stuff. But like, we're losing an edge from DFS that we've already started to see with the 10 p.m. slate being cut off. And now we're doubling down on that even further. I don't like it at all. And if that's the case, and that's going to be on one singular site, then I will put my money on a different site, if that's what it's going to be. So I'm not in favor of it. I like late swap, whether or not it was at one time not around or not. It has been, and it's been a better product because of it, because 6 out of 7 nights you're not facing a zero, right? Like, where we're testing this the worst time of year to do it, right? Because half the league is about to be in full tank mode. Then what? when you just have to just say, screw it, I can't play 9 teams on a 9-game slate because half the league is going to be resting guys and I can't trust it. Like that's just not right. So if that's going to be a permanent thing, I will take my money and I'll play it elsewhere.
Yeah, and again, the idea behind this is it's supposedly helping out sort of the common man player. But I think if you look at social media, you'll see a lot of those, high buy-in, max entry lineup, algo, touts out there that are happy about this because they can go plug in their 75 lineups with player A and 75 lineups with player B. One of those guys might get ruled out, and now you have a low ownership on the lineups that you do have those exposure, and a lot of people are going to be eating the zeros or avoiding those games altogether, and it just gives them a bit more of a competitive having that sort of infinite bankroll. James and I have been very open and honest with you guys. We're not out here playing 150 lineups. We play 3-4 lineups, maybe max. Usually you'll find us in the single entry contest there. So definitely a different strategy to go about when it comes to some of your lineup builds. And we're going to have to talk a lot about that if this becomes the norm. Now, tonight's slate has late swap. Tomorrow's slate will have late swap. Right now it looks like only the Friday slate is going to be non-late slot, late swap slate. So we'll have to wait and see how that all transpires. But again, I don't think it really does us many favors, getting rid of that as it is now on larger slates like a Friday, where a lot of games will be locking after 7 p.m. You're not going to have some of that injury news till 7:30, 8 o'clock. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how, what kind of backlash maybe even this ends up getting. And like you said, we play on other sites. This show might be rebranded if that ends up being the case sooner rather than later. So enough of our soapbox talk. Let us know what you guys think about getting rid of late swap. If you're for it, if you're against it, throw that in the chat. Can the man saying worst idea ever here? Listen, we're not huge fans of no late swap either. It was brought up. FanDuel used to do the drop low zero. We've talked a lot about it. If they wanted to get rid of late swap, but then add in the drop low score, fine. Like do it that way. Then drop the low score of your lineup. Do no late swap. That way you're saved a little bit from the zero. The story that James and I talk a lot about is the guy that won the 100K, putting in a retired non-min price Zach Randolph in his lineup. It was the year that Zebo basically retired, but he's still in the player pool on FanDuel and not at min price. The guy plugged him in at power forward, took a zero because he didn't play in the NBA, and that guy took down the 100K that night, with the zero in his lineup because they were dropping the low score. So you want to get rid of late swap, add drop low score. That'll make that product, at least a bit more palatable to me here. So let's get into this slate though. Again, 4 games on this one, so a little bit of a quicker show. But if you have any questions, you have any comments, throw them in the chat. If you haven't already liked or subscribed to the channel, do so as well. Certainly helps us out with the YouTube algorithms. We go live here every day at 5 o'clock Eastern time. And of course, we release our pre-show usually later on in the evening, 10, 11 o'clock. We'll have that ready to go for the next day's slate here. 4 games on the slate. We have Toronto, Indiana. We have Detroit, New York. We have Brooklyn, Memphis, and we have Miami, Sacramento. When it comes to game totals here for today, what are the matchups that we're looking for here, James?
Toronto, Indiana, slate high 245.5. Indiana giving 5.5 over on BetMGM. The Pistons, Knicks 222.5. Knicks giving 11.5. Memphis 2-point road dogs or 2-point home dogs 214.5. And the late night hammer, which I think is going to be an incredibly intriguing game. Just based on who's in for Miami and what the ownership is suggesting their people are gravitating to. 224.5 in that game, 7.5 spread in favor of the Kings. Kings and Pacers are the 2 teams on back-to-backs here. So it is worth noting Kings coming off a really, really good win last night against the Clippers. And are facing a depleted Miami Heat team. So
yeah, I
would say Toronto, Indiana, Miami, Sacramento are my 2 favorite games, but there's a lot of ownership headed towards the New York side of things that will obviously get.
Yeah. Let's start at point guard. I'm going to start where the chalk monster is here on tonight's slate. And you mentioned him on the pre-show this morning. That's Delon Wright. Expectation is here that he would make his debut for Miami because they're down Butler, they're down Hero, they're down Rozier. So you would expect Delon Wright to make his debut. ownership is right there with him. He's getting 60% of the current rostership right now. It is a 4-game slate. He has been priced late night game as well. So, we won't know if he's not in the starting lineup and there's no late swap. What do we do, James? We just play him anyways. Delon Wright's going to be plugged into a lot of lineups here tonight. You probably should play him as well.
Oh, Rex, it's a good comment. It's a good shout. Who doesn't enjoy that? I agree. Couldn't agree more.
At least the fans in our family is all in agreement with us here. We're pro late swap, at least currently in the chat here.
I mean, again, like you said, and you tagged me in a tweet that was specific players in our community, right?
Yep.
Players that you play 150 lineups. Anyone that's not playing 150 lineups and like is a one lineup play, like cash game players, John. You think cash game players are gonna like this, who play volume of cash in one singular lineup and potentially like this safe play, like, oh man, like I could potentially have, and then like it's like, oh, I have 2 zeros tonight in my cash lineup and I'm dead. It's just like, anyways, I don't want to go down. What if
Wembanyama steps on the ball boy again? And you can't swap him out. It's
Delon Wright. Delon Wright.
He's 3K. You're going to plug him in your lineup. He's getting 60% of the ownership here tonight.
I will say this: Eric Spoelstra, and it is not just Hero, Rozier, Butler. It is also Josh Richardson. It also is Nikola Jovic.
Yeah,
they use Jovic as a ball handler. So like, I do think Delon Wright is playing. No doubt, undoubtedly, he was bought out and signed. I also would not be surprised if like Duncan Robinson is the starting point guard in this game. Just how much he's improved on that end, and just how much Spoelstra's been like so weird about lineups and stuff. You just see like a bunch of zone in this game, and they go like Duncan Robinson, Jaquez, Caleb Martin, Highsmith, and Bam. Like that's your starting five. That I wouldn't be surprising. I'm not saying I'm not playing Delon Wright. I'm also just preparing everyone for an Eric Spoelstra lineup at 9:30 that has no Delon Wright, and then 50% of the field are like, oh crap, what do I do? Or it's like Alondas Williams starting, right? It's
Jaime Jaquez starting a point guard.
No, dude. I legitimately think there's a case. I do think it would be between Jaquez and Duncan of the two guys, because Duncan's been really good off the ball, and plus it doesn't matter because the offense.
Didn't Caleb Martin play some point guard for them last year? Like,
I mean, it does not matter. The offense is going to run through Bam, right? Like at the end of the day, we saw it a few games ago. Bam had 11 assists. Like whoever's bringing the ball up, they're not initiating the offense. Like Bam is. So just get somebody on the floor to get the ball over half court and go from there. But I do agree, Delon Wright 50% is kind of crazy considering he was a DMP in his debut with the Miami Heat. But I'm a Delon Wright fan, and he's
I think he'll play enough tonight, just given the lack of depth at that price that you kind of got to get him in your lineup at 3K anyways.
Yep.
If we do circle all the way back up to the top, there's obviously some elite names here. Jalen Brunson going up against Detroit at home. Absolute smash spot for him. Tyrese Halliburton at home against Toronto. Great spot for him. Both those guys up over 9K. You've been in on Scottie Barnes. He was the cover of today's live stream show. So, where they were high on Barnes. And then De'Aaron Fox, $8,300 coming off another 50 fantasy point game here. Yes, it's a back-to-back. Yes, it's a Miami team that, again, potentially going to get blown out. It's only a 7.5-point spread. Sacramento doesn't usually blow anybody out unless it's the Clippers. Can't make a run at the end of games. Davion Mitchell's out here hitting threes. But, I digress. De'Aaron Fox here, 83, and Kate Cunningham at 8K. Also, really great values tonight.
Yeah, and nobody's playing De'Aaron Fox for what that's worth. Everyone's gravitating to Brunson. Brunson's 43% rostered on draft. Actually, I'm looking at FanDuel. Hold on. Please hold. I was looking at the wrong site. My apologies. Don't even know why I was looking at FanDuel. Just shows me where my mind's at. Jalen Brunson, 24% rostered. So he's getting some good ownership. De'Aaron Fox is getting a lot of ownership on DraftKings, 24%. It is interesting because I think, obviously, when you look at Brunson, as good of a spot as it gets, the minutes are good, even in blowouts. He played 38 in a 14-point loss, 39 in a 14-point win, 35 in an 18-point loss, and the production is fantastic. So like,
He doesn't come off the floor.
Doesn't come off the floor. Halliburton, the minutes have been great. This is so I looked it up and I thought Toronto was playing fast. They have slowed down drastically. They're middle of the pack since the OG trade, but they are 29th in defense. So that is worth mentioning. Also worth mentioning, Halliburton not even popping on the injury report on a back-to-back, which is something that we haven't seen because he's popped on the injury report basically every slate until yesterday. So love Halliburton. Definitely love Scottie Barnes at 89. He's back to like beginning of the year Scottie Barnes, where he was just kind of doing a little bit of everything, scoring, peripheral stats. The peripheral stats have been outrageous, but when he gets the 20 plus points, I mean, we're talking about a guy with a 60-point ceiling.
Scottie Barnes will be the face of the league, so
he is the face of the league. I'm a little interested in Fox for sure. I'm a little indifferent about Cunningham. Not that I think he can't go off. He's obviously done it in back-to-back games, 43, 50 fantasy points, one of which was in a really tough matchup against Orlando. The Knicks are not a good matchup for Cade Cunningham, and I'm just a little bit concerned with the minutes. I told you on the show. I don't like that he's only playing 31 minutes. Don't like it.
Yep.
I prefer anyone above him that I have more confidence in getting at least like 3+ more minutes on a nightly basis.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think eventually we'll see the minutes go up, but hard to project when we are not really getting any information on that for them either. Going down under 8K, you have Quickly and Cam Thomas both here. Ben Simmons, we'll find out if he's in or out or not. Nembhard, McConnell, Burks. Like, what's your thoughts on the value in mid-tier guards here?
Love Quickly, 72. He's been really good. This is obviously a good spot for Toronto in terms of pace, with Indiana sitting atop the league. Quickly, shot attempts have been amazing, 16 and 20 in 2 games out since coming back from the break. The minutes are obviously good for Quickly too. So 7,200 for Quickly, fine. Very indifferent about Brooklyn as a whole today. The only place I'd really be interested in, and I noticed it, why I think Ben Simmons is out here, John. Brooklyn put out a tweet earlier this morning about like game day, and Dennis Schroeder was the cover photo of that picture. And maybe I'm just reading into that, but like, why is Dennis Schroeder the cover of your? I mean, I know things are bad in Brooklyn, but like, is it that bad that we're putting Dennis Schroeder as the cover of your tweet, right? So that makes me believe Simmons is out and like Schroeder's starting, but we'll see. Other than Quickly, it's like Nembhard's fine. He's been playing a lot of minutes. He's been super consistent. Low 30s minutes, low to mid 30s minutes, mid to high 20s in fantasy points. That's been basically the production nightly for Nembhard. I think there's an outside chance Goodwin starts if now that he's signed this 2-way deal and they axe Jacob Gilyard, but we'll see what Memphis does with their starting lineup, because they could just start Luke Kennard at 46. I think Kennard's a fine value. You get to McConnell at 48. McConnell's been kind of crazy from a fantasy perspective lately. We've seen this before, right? Like when Nembhard starts, that's when McConnell plays. So it's like, as long as that rotation is going to continue, Neesmith is out, Mathurin starts, Nembhard starts, McConnell's going to be the de facto point guard. So
kind of wish he would see a little bit more minutes. I mean, even in these blowouts, he's still not cracking 20.
They turned to Ben Shepherd and it ruins our lives. But sure, 45 if he's starting another potential value outside of, and for anyone that missed it, obviously DeLon Wright 3K.
Sure. Anything for Dennis Smith Jr. here if there's no Simmons tonight?
If he were to start, I mean, there's one of the Dennises maybe one of the Dennises start.
Yeah, we'll see. Lonnie Walker gets some minutes. Who knows? Shooting guard here. Mikal Bridges is 72. DDV down to $7,100 as that price starts to come down. RJ at 7K. Vince Williams at $6,900. Cam Thomas, we talked about, at 68. Ivy 6K. That's your top 6 or so shooting guards on this slate. We talked the DDV price a lot lately. I mean, are we still fading it until it comes back into that 6K range, or are you comfortable here?
It's fine. Definitely a spot where he can make a bunch of shots. Don't love that the minutes were back like low 30s. That's not great. There was some foul trouble because it was mid to high 30s coming out of the break. So he's fine. Same thing with Bridges tournaments, DiVincenzo tournaments, Barrett all formats if that game stays competitive. Vince Williams is fine as well. Put in your lunch pail. I don't love the price. You know, we saw the Milwaukee game, they played without Jaren Jackson. And then Jaren Jackson comes back and we lose already low volume shot attempts go down even further. And then
great to see the rebounds and assists continue, obviously, because it shows that there's a good floor potential ceiling too if he shoots. So yeah, I'm with you. This isn't really like the greatest spot. I guess I can't like really peg on how I feel about Brooklyn defensively because we know Nick Claxton, really good defender. We know Dorian Finney-Smith's a good wing defender. If there's no Ben Simmons,
Simmons is a good
defender, but if there
isn't
Simmons tonight, then what are they down to, right? Cam Johnson, Cam Thomas,
terrible.
Those guys are not good defenders. So
no,
if Vince Williams is drawing, DFS tonight, then he's probably in for a tougher spot. Memphis not really having any other scorers outside of Jaren Jackson and Claxton likely jumps on him, then that maybe, opens up a little bit, but I don't know. Cash games, maybe Vince Williams tonight, but I don't know if he has that tournament ceiling for me.
Agreed.
Monk's coming off of a tough game. I mean, could bounce back here tonight against Miami.
We know he has a crazy ceiling when the shots are falling, and I do like that even in a bad game he plays 20 minutes.
Played the final.
Right? So
what was that? 18 minutes of that game, right?
Yeah, that's something that we weren't getting at points earlier in the year where if he's stunk he didn't play and they were just like
so he literally played. He played the final 17 minutes of the game. Subbed in 5 minutes ago in the third. Played the entire fourth quarter.
So definitely get to Monk. Definitely get to Monk if you want. But are you playing Monk over Matherin, Duncan Robinson? Is the question.
He didn't even get subbed out when Sabonis and Fox and all them got subbed out when they were up 15. He just played. They just left him out.
It was over.
They just left him out there. So no, Duncan Robinson, I said on the show this morning, was one of my favorite plays of the slate. Nothing has changed there. I'm still going to be playing a lot of Duncan Robinson. I'm actually surprised that he's not even as high up there as everybody else. Duncan Robinson only chalking in at around 20% tonight. I would have assumed at 5,400 on DraftKings, he would have been more like 30, 40% with DeLon Wright because we've seen what this man can do lately anyways when guys are out of the lineup. We saw what he could do earlier this year when they had no Rozier, no Butler. He was scoring 30. So Sacramento, not a great defensive team here by any stretch of the imagination. So I really like Duncan Robinson. He's going to be one of my favorite plays here.
Agreed. I think it is interesting to see these three names checking in with basically the same ownership: Monk, Matherin, Duncan Robinson. I don't know why people are sleeping on Duncan Robinson so much. I do agree. So if I were to rank them, it would probably be Duncan, Matherin, Monk for me in that order. Miami has such a good pace up spot. They're getting a team on the second leg of a back-to-back, and they're shorthanded, right? It's kind of a dream scenario for Miami guys. Matherin, we've seen start back-to-back games without Nesmith, and he's going to start again. He's played 33 and 35 minutes in those two games, 31 and 43 fantasy points on 5 of 14 shooting back-to-back games. I'm plugging Matherin and Duncan Robinson into all my lineups today. Basically over Malik Monk. And I get the appeal for Malik Monk because he has a serious tournament upside, but I don't think he has minute upside that Matherin and Duncan Robinson have in this game, especially if the Kings just are healthy, right? If the Kings are healthy, Monk's doesn't have mid 30s minutes upside unless they go to overtime. Really.
I agree with you. And I don't really have any interest in Ivy there at that same little level there. So Kevin Huerter broke my heart a little bit last night. We hit the 3 and then he never came back in. 25 minutes. Can we trust him if he's just going to get wiped out of an entire fourth quarter of a game?
No.
I mean,
no, you can't. No, he's out.
That's tough.
No, thanks. What's his ownership? Because like I hope anyone out there looking to play Kevin Huerter, please don't. 7%. Please don't.
I mean, well, the thing is, like you say, please don't. He had 22 fantasy points. He's under 5K. He had 35 before that. But like he literally did not play the fourth quarter of that game. So
dude, if he's not playing the fourth quarter, you just
of a game that like at one point they got it down to close and they just subbed in like Davion and Duarte again, and you're like, wait a minute. Where's the order?
You just can't do
order
it.
shift coming? Didn't exist. Trent, Zaire Williams, Alec Burks, a lot of these guys in the same range here, all available to score some points, for their teams, whether in the starting lineup or off the bench. And then you got Fournier and Grimes down here at 38 and 36, both up against their former teams.
Yeah, I mean, I think Grimes is the one I prefer. I think there's a higher minute ceiling on Quentin Grimes. I think he was the more highly coveted piece of that trade. It's just really hard to predict what Monty Williams is doing on a night-to-night basis. Obviously, it doesn't hurt that there's no Isaiah Stewart. It doesn't hurt that there's no Marcus Sasser. Like, these are all good things for both. So I lean Grimes. He's cheaper. Fournier obviously has better position eligibility, but I like the 8 shots. I like the 26 minutes too for Grimes. That'd be the direction.
Okay. Small forward here. Again, a lot of guys we've discussed already. But Siakam's here at $8,100. Then goes down to like Josh Hart, someone we haven't talked about. Bojan. I mean, where are we on a smaller slate? Player pools are smaller. So, where are you going at small forward? I imagine what we're going to end up doing here is just plugging in a lot of the guys that we talked about shooting guard. Also at small forward tonight, just doubling up.
Hey, Kurt, you get it. You understand. It sucks.
The only people I've seen forward are the big 150 max lineup touts that are on Twitter right now. So
correct. Yeah, obviously we touched on Barnes. I think he's in a great spot if you want to get there. Siakam, revenge. Don't care. 8,100 is just fine. I don't think it helps Siakam.
He did have 44 fantasy points against him in the first revenge game. So
I'm happy. I'm very happy for him. I don't think it helps him having Ben Mathurin in the starting lineup. I think Ben Mathurin takes a lot away from because he's just so offensive minded, and he's also been rebounding kind of at a crazy clip. Also, Miles Turner doing the Miles Turner thing lately, that obviously hasn't helped. So I'm okay if you get to Siakam 81. It's not my favorite play. And then, like you said, it's just like a bunch of guys that we've talked about. I am interested. The field is very high on Josh Hart, like very high. He is the second highest rostered player of the slate. He was the first highest until the Miami news broke. Do you think it's because he's come out of the break and has played 42 and 44 minutes and just not coming off the floor? Is that something that you think continues here against Detroit?
Certainly possible. I mean, why not, right? Like, why wouldn't it just keep running the way they're running right now? You frozen?
No, I'm not. Agreed.
Okay. Where else are we going to small forward?
Jaime Jaquez 56, Duncan Robinson we talked about. Detroit's fine. I'm kind of indifferent about both of those guys. Zaire Williams 47. I think Highsmith should get a bunch of run 46. Jake LaRavia as a pundit 34.
Okay. I think that the value down here are pretty interesting. It took a prop on Fantecchio scoring points here tonight. Our guy Iggy also is high on Fantecchio scoring points here tonight. If you go check out the NBA Best Bets article from our guy Iggy Gilbert, it's out on Fantasy Alarm, high on the over Fantecchio points. Give a little teaser on some of his props here tonight. Power forward again. A lot of guys we've talked about. Triple J's up here at 79 though.
Triple J is a very solid play. No surprise to see his ownership to where it is. If you want to get to him, by all means. You also could run into foul trouble per usual with Jaren Jackson. So, buyers beware.
Sure. Are you riding Achua? Do you think the minutes still remain for him here?
I think there's going to be a trend in the south direction as long as Hartenstein's minutes continue to go up. But I'm fine getting there.
We have a power forward only Caleb Martin. Obviously, we talked a little bit of Jaquez already. Aldama's here at $5,400. Osor Thompson, again, small forward, power forward. Keegan, Cam J, GG. Like, what are we doing for some value power forwards here tonight?
Definitely the Heat guys stand out. Keegan's fine. He's getting a lot of ownership. He's been incredibly hit or miss, but the price is obviously appealing. So if you want to get to Keegan Murray, do so. Cam Johnson, only if he starts. GG Jackson, definitely in play for tournaments, although it's not a TNT night. So that's really where he stood out. If Jalen Smith sits, I would consider some Obi Toppin. That's really
okay. Moving on over then to the center position. You have Sabonis, you have Bam. Those are your top two guys. I know we've talked a lot what a Bam is capable of doing when he's on a team by himself. Is he the one you're locking in here today?
I like both. I did a short over on FantasyAlarm.com's YouTube channel, and I just talked about Sabonis being as good as it gets. He leads the league in triple doubles by a wide margin. He has 5 triple doubles in his last 6 games. So if you want to play Sabonis, definitely do so. But Bam is obviously going to be, far and away the chalkiest center of the night. Actually, that's surprising to see Sabonis still with more
Sabonis
ownership.
at 28, Bam at 26. So definitely the two top center options here. I like Nick Claxton a lot here tonight. $6,700 is a mid-tier play. Again, no one's really in on Claxton. He's checking in around 15%. So for a smaller slate, that's not a ton of ownership. I mean, again, I know he hasn't popped in a few games here, but we've talked a lot about the matchups against Memphis for centers when they're running triple, Jaren Jackson out there. A lot of rebound potential here for Nick Claxton. We know what his defensive numbers can be, and he's not terrible when it comes to the offensive side. They just obviously don't feed him the basketball, but he can get some offensive rebound putbacks. He does get some dunks. I kind of think Claxton in the mid tier is an interesting spot.
I'm not there, but I don't hate it. He's under a fantasy point per minute with Ben Simmons on the floor. I guess it'd be, for me, more contingent on the Simmons.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, again, I am coming at this with the idea that maybe Simmons doesn't play. We know Simmons playing changes the way a lot of things will work for that offense. So you get Claxton out there and a good spot against centers. I think that changes the question. Duran's there at 68. Jakob Poeltl at $6,400, kind of all in the same, mid-tier range.
As is Miles Turner, who's coming off 33 actual, 43, 37, 37, 41 fantasy points in the last 4. I just wish we'd get extended a little bit more. I know I'm being picky because this is a guy that was like barely getting mid-20s at some point in the year. But definitely could see myself getting into some Turner in tournaments as well. Duran obviously has a ceiling. Poeltl, another guy just kind of settling into mid-20s. And I don't think we could play Hartenstein unless we were told like minutes limit.
We had a question on Kevin Love. What are your thoughts on what his minutes could look like tonight?
I think that we're going to get a pretty solid Kevin Love game. In that Milwaukee game that they were sans a lot of players, we saw Bam and Kevin Love playing alongside of one another, and he went off. And I'm not suggesting that's going to happen again, but they're shorthanded. They need able bodies. They started the year playing Kevin Love alongside Bam Adebayo. They just shifted. They were like, all right, we need to get Thomas Bryant the heck out of here. Kevin Love, you're our new backup center. So I'm perfectly fine getting to both. I think there's scenarios where we see both. The Kings use a Trey Lyles Sabonis lineup a bunch. So that could be the lineup where you see Kevin Love. They also just could play zone and use both of them. So I think there's a scenario where Kevin Love is definitely one of the 4 or 5 Heat you're playing, because I do think this is a night where you look at Miami and all the pieces that they're missing, and you could max 5. Yep. I currently have max 4, but I could be talked into.
Agree. Yeah, I think when we talk about the value, and now it's a smaller slate, so it's not like you need all that value to really spend up like we've had to do in the past, where it's like, oh, we play 5 of these 4K guys, and now we can go get a Luka or Giannis or whatever. Like those guys aren't on the slate here. So, but I'm with you there. I think stacking this late game is certainly going to be interesting. Any final thoughts here before we build a lineup?
There is the note that Jalen Smith is questionable, which I 100% expected because he's been kind of listed and he played yesterday. If he were to sit, we know that means Isaiah Jackson's the backup. And we also know Miles Turner can get foul happy. So it's not a free price tag anymore. Like Isaiah Jackson, obviously, is $4,800 compared to what he's been at times. But it is just worth mentioning that there's a lot of scenarios that could play out where Isaiah Jackson is like finding himself low 20s minutes if Jalen Smith's out and Turner's in foul trouble, because both those things happen quite often. So that would be the only other note. And shout out Kelly O, who we could
can always just throw some Kelly on there. All right, let's get a lineup built. We'll start with Dylan Wright here, and probably Duncan Robinson and Bam, because we said we'd play upwards of 4 or 5 here.
I'd play 5. I would play 5.
Jaquez.
Just given the price. I'm not saying I will, but like because Delon Wright's 3K, it makes it easier to get to 5.
Sure. If we start with 4, Wright, Robinson, Jaquez, Bam, what's our next move here?
Sabonis, or one of the spend ups at point guard, probably. Like,
yeah. Do you like Brunson or Halliburton?
That's a very challenging question. I like the game. I like the game better in Indy. Yeah, I like the Indy game better.
So Halliburton as our guard here. 6K about per play. Are you in on Matherin too at 55?
Yes, sir.
All right, we need a power forward. I guess
or you could put Jaquez, or you could play Jaquez there and Matherin as well.
That works. All right, 62 for forward in Utah.
I already know you want Simone, so just put him in there.
7,600 Utah.
I already know you wanted him.
Why
Put
not?
him in there. Got him in there.
Yeah, quickly.
If we were to, and you just switched a lot. You just switched a lot right and quickly. Just play him that way.
All right. Little run back stack there. We don't have anybody in Sacramento coming back. I don't know if that changed.
If you wanted, you could play Keegan Murray over Simone, or you could play Keegan Murray over Jaquez, or
let's see what can we do here? How do we get Fox? Can we get Fox in a lineup? Go off Mather maybe. Play Zaire.
I don't want to play Zaire. I'd rather play Matherin. I'm very high on Matherin tonight. If you do that, you can go from Simone to Quentin Grimes.
Simone to Grimes.
Oh no, he's shooting guard only, which actually wouldn't be because Duncan.
Duncan, you can play at multiple positions there. All right, we'll go back off Fox then. And we had quickly here. Where is he? There he is. And then Matherin. So just an example lineup for everybody. $400 are left over, so you can play around with that as you wish. Roster lock at 7 o'clock. Of course, Dylan Clemens on the playbook today. It's already out for all of you. He'll have any updates that need to be done there. James and I will be back live class 5 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow. Slate, and we'll have the pre-show done for you all this evening. Get you ready for Tuesday as well. Find us in the Discord. Get us on Twitter. Good luck, everybody, tonight. We'll talk to you later.